Hello and welcome back. Hey, today is the 5th of April 2021 and I got restricted from YouTube. Why? Because I'm telling the truth. Now they said I had 3 strikes, but I didn't have 3 strikes. They came up with a lie and they said, okay, we're going to give you a strike for number 1, you trying to talk about Chief Justice Roberts. Well, I wasn't trying to talk about him. I was trying to say that his baby clerk denied us constitutional rights by being incompetent and hiding our case. And on top of that, the 3 baby clerks in D.C. Court of Appeals were just as bad because they're signing orders, denying rights, and making their own law as they go along. And on top of that, they're violating our rights because we can't put anything or publish these documents on the record because they're covering up for the criminality we have in the judicial system in D.C. And the 3rd strike, they said, was my video on Japan. Japan's prime minister coming to the United States to talk about human rights violation and the Magnitsky Act. I find it very interesting that he's coming on the 16th of April and they're hiding my ADA client, Jenny, in the news. Okay, America, I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to show you how we've tried to help Jimmy and James using Titles 2, Title 3 of the ADA and the Magnitsky Act and going to the State Department. I'm also going to show you the rules and regulations that they do not follow. They do not follow. They follow it with everybody except Japan, and you got to ask yourself why. And I will post these at the end, but I want you to see how hilarious this whole thing is. Here we are trying to fight for rights, and we're not getting it. We're going through the same policy procedures that they're supposed to follow, that they're not following. When I say they're not, I'm saying the State Department. And we're reaching out to help. And then also there is a general letter. A bunch of generals got together and said, hey, look, Mr. President, we want you to help. But I don't think this was a good general letter because it wasn't signed. And it wasn't signed. And I'm just saying, nothing is being done as it pertains to human rights with Americans. Here, read it for yourself. Open your eyes. The bottom line up front is we are doing the paperwork, following the procedures and process that they are supposed to follow, and they're not following themselves. We are having a problem with the State Department. They're not doing their job. They're not reporting it, nothing. And what I'm highlighting is a safety issue that's not being reported. So back to YouTube. So YouTube said if I had any problem to appeal it. Well, guess what, YouTube? I appealed it, and I'm going to take leave of the court. I'm going to add you as a defendant in our court case. Why? Because you violate our constitutional rights. You can't have me or punish me because I'm telling the public that government officials are violating the constitutional rights. They're violating their oath, their oath of office. How stupid does that sound? Come on, people. That sounds ridiculous. Here I am, a disabled veteran, fought for constitutional rights that these people, the judges, the corrupt federal employees, state employees, clerks, aren't giving us. I would have died overseas to fight for the rights that they aren't giving us. And I'm telling on them, and you got YouTube telling me, you know what, you're on restriction for a week for telling on these people that violate your constitutional rights. And then you got Chief Justice from the Supreme Court, Clarence, saying, hey, look, go ahead and sue everybody who's violating your rights. Well, I'm saying, okay, YouTube, come on down. You're number 111 on the defendant list. Okay, I'm going to stop and read what Justice Clarence said because I know some of my wounded warriors have a hard time reading because of their injury. It says, in a unanimous opinion issued today by the U.S. Supreme Court and authorized by Associate Justice Clarence Thomas, the court ruled in Tanzan versus Tanver that individuals may seek damages as remedy when federal officers, federal officers violate their rights. The opinion closely tracks an America's brief submitted by the Institute for Justice. The case involved FBI agents who retaliated against Muslim Americans and green card holders who followed the dictates of their faith and refused to cooperate with the FBI by spying on their own communities. As a result of their refusal to cooperate, these individuals were placed on the no-fly list, which caused significant hardship such as the inability to travel, to visit family, or for work. Luckily, Congress provided a statutory authorization to sue for violation of religious rights, allowing a plaintiff to receive appropriate relief against the government. Not surprisingly, in the lawsuit against the FBI agents, the government argued that the words appropriate relief do not include damages. According to the government, damages might be an appropriate remedy against private actors, but damages should not be allowed if the person who violated your rights happened to work for the government. The Institute for Justice filed an America's brief arguing against that radical notion. IJ's brief outlined how suits for damages against government officials are the historical cornerstone of government accountability, how damages are often the only way to vindicate constitutional rights, and how none of the government's policies justifications against damages have a basis in reality. IJs further explain that matters of policy should be left to Congress, not to court. According to the court, in a context of suits against government officials, damages have long been awarded as appropriate relief, and that has been true not only for state and local officials, but also federal officials, like those employed by the FBI. However, or moreover, the court highlighted that damages are important because they are often the only remedy available. For example, for one of the plaintiffs, Mohammed Tanver, who lost his job because of his placement on the no-fly list, it is damages or nothing. Finally, in response to the government's argument that policy favors denying a damage remedy against government officials, Justice Thomas, just like Justice Story, 2 centuries before him, emphasized that it is the job of Congress to engage in policy making. There are no constitutional reasons why we must do so in its stead. The court today has provided its full throttle endorsement of damages as a necessary and historical mechanism for constitutional accountability, said Scott Bldg, IJ's President and General Counsel. In doing so, the court also reiterates its support for the foundational principles of this country, such as that damages can be awarded to check the government's power and that it is Congress's job to enact or engage in policymaking. The court's job is to interpret the law, not to do policy, etc., etc. You can read the rest, but the problem that we're having is our baby little clerks are trying to interpret law, and they can't do that, right? And we're sharing this fraud to the public, and we got YouTube saying, no, you can't do that. You're on restriction. Don't tell the people the truth. Now, come on, guys. I can see if I didn't have hard evidence on these leaders that violate our rights. You know, you go into court. Somebody said you go into court, and it's crying shame that the highest Supreme Court can't protect you. The second highest Supreme Court of the land can't protect you. And on top of that, the district court and the state courts are all tied in criminality, and they get their little clerks to write orders. This is ridiculous. You guys need to wake up. And not only that, you have social media. You have, because we went to ABC, Fox, Today's Show came over, and all of them had a chance to highlight the news. Matter of fact, we can't even highlight our case because the criminals have access and bought the electronic filing to keep our news out of the news. And then we have YouTube keeping me quiet, putting me on restriction because I'm telling the people that the Japan or Japanese are coming over and they're going to talk about the Magnitsky Act before the Olympics. Yeah, right. I would like to be in that discussion. I want to know, what are they going to do? How are they going to resolve the Magnitsky Act and all their human rights violations that they did, to include on Jimmy and James? In my Auntie Donna's case, she was a disabled, if you recall. They broke her neck. A paratrans driver broke her neck, and Zurich and judges and attorneys covered it up. And she died. She died. This is a human rights violation. All my 88 clients matter. They had a life, and these people are taking it away and writing policy for other people besides those in America. It's unbelievable, people. And these people want me to be quiet? For what? To wait so it can happen to you and your children? Unbelievable. My Auntie Nana was a disabled, and she was tortured. She's gone. We can't bring her back. My brother-in-law, Carl, is gone after his stroke. My husband, after his stroke, after VA ordered him back to work against the board-certified doctor's orders, while he was recovering, they ordered him back again, the second time, to do the job. While my son, who was suicidal, had suicidal thoughts, were watching. They're here right now. Jimmy's here right now. He was tortured. James was tortured. 2 murder attempts. We were run off the road. My son, because I'm a whistleblower, was run off the road. His steering wheel pump was cut. They're here. We can capitalize on everybody's strength and stop the nonsense now. Now. There's no need to shut me up and wait for it to happen to you or your family or your children. Unbelievable, isn't it? YouTube, you're in trouble. All right, let's stay on track. Back to the Japanese and their visit to DC in April. I want to know, how are they going to resolve it before the Olympics? I told my son, do you want to go to Japan for the Olympics or the Paralympics? I asked my Wounded Warriors that I coach, and they said, yeah. And some of them said, can I bring my children? Well, you know what? That's a hard question to answer. Why? Because if you allow them to bring their children, you got to think about it. And I had to stop and think. And my son helped me stop and think when I asked him if he wanted to go. He said, Mom, you know, they being Japan, allow their military doctors to operate Nazi style on American children. Like Jimmy. I'm your child, Mom. You're asking me to go to the Olympics to Japan. So what does that tell you? And I said, I got you. What that tells you is I'm setting my son up to be a guinea pig so they can operate on him. Because guess what? As long as we don't have this discussion, we're waiting for it to happen again. And I told DOD, I said, look, how did Mike Frew, because I always write him every day almost. I said, how can Mike Frew respond to my question regarding what's the status of Jimmy's case because Jimmy is in danger? He opens our email, and then I respond to him. I said, guess what? You're supposed to be on my Corps Warrant until you're supposed to be gone. 22 soldiers die a day, and you're not helping them, and I can prove it. I can prove you're involved, Mike. I can prove 810, all those attorneys in Building 810 set us up using Von Zell. What they do is they use clerks and throwaway like Von Zell to do their dirty work. And it needs to stop. I told Bill Spittle, I told him, look, tell General Miley just to do his job. Protect us. You can protect everybody else in the world, but you can't protect Americans? That's ridiculous. You can't protect service-disabled veterans at that. Mike Frew and all those VA leaders that I named in our court case, the 10th Amendment complaint, needs to be gone. They were all on a quo warranto. They cannot serve the American people. They violated their oath. That's a federal offense. That's a treasonous offense. They got to get gone. Otherwise, you're setting us up for more harm, and the harm stops now. Just do your job. Do your job, DOD. Do your job. And I'm going to tell you what every top leader tells the soldier. If you can't do your job, I'll find someone that can. And don't get stuck on stupid. These people are white-collar criminals. Do your job, do your duty, and put them where they belong in Gitmo. Hey, and a shout out for those that are paying attention and following me on social media, whether it's on YouTube, BitChute, or Facebook. You're asking, well, what's next? You see all this administrative trickery and us responding. You know, what's next is we get all of Americans to wake up and see what's going on. And we voice our thoughts, because without you, these people will stay in power, to include the military. If the military is doing something wrong and there is a leader that's doing something wrong, we got to get rid of them. Why? Because leaders are responsible for what happens and what fails to happen. That is what we're taught. And if we see something, we do something. We fix the problem. We are never in the business of harming anyone. And I'm just showing you that this is one case of thousands. These people, these criminals are doing this over and over and over again to everyone that challenges them. And you ask, well, what's the problem? What's the solution? How do we find a solution to the problem? Capitalizing on everybody's strength. I need all Americans to wake up and see what we're paying for. These people are harming. When I say these people, I'm talking about the DC, our leaders in DC. It's the congressmen that receive the tax dollars, that give the tax dollars to the agencies that collect the tax dollars, that violate constitutional rights. And they're violating the most vulnerable. That is the disabled. That is the veteran, the service-disabled veteran. These people in leadership positions, I'm giving you hard evidence that the cabal, those people in Building 810, they're the worst enemy. They collect congressionally appropriated funds, and they stand up other agencies like the whistleblower, Office of Whistleblower Accountability. It is such rigged. We don't need it. We got the IG. Why do you need the Office of Whistleblower Accountability? To collect money? And then also they collect evidence to use against you, prevent you from getting your benefits. And then any whistleblower that tells on them, they hammer. Come on, guys, wake up. We have been played by the top leaders in the United States. In the State Department, I can go on and on about the State Department. You saw us, you heard us argue back and forth, saying, hey, look, we got an American child that has been violated. He's been violated by the Japanese military. He's in Nihon. Not only did they violate him, there's 100 other. We have hard evidence that 100 others have been done the same way. Go investigate. Don't just sit on your hands. We being the military have a responsibility to stand up and protect. And all I'm asking is, DOD, do your job. I know your job. I know your job. And there's no reason for anyone to die, especially not Jimmy. And protect Jimmy's parents. Jimmy's parents are humanitarians. They had patents to save the world. Why did the 1% steal it? Why did the bank steal it? Why are they protecting them? Because of greed and control? Come on, guys. This does not make sense. I don't understand your logic. And if there is a psyops going on, it needs to stop. People, I believe, are woke. No more deaths. No more deaths. Don't let Jimmy die, because if Jimmy dies, you know what? It's going to happen. Everybody is going to be held accountable. Everybody's going to be held accountable in accessories to murder, to include those high-ranking attorneys, the Japanese attorneys that are thinking about, dreaming about taking Jimmy away from his parents and putting him in the custody of the courts to hide the State Department's play-to-pay game, misdeeds, and their dereliction of duty. No, that's not happening, and I'm putting it out there right now. We need protection. We need to make sure that everybody capitalizes on everybody's strength, and we get together, put our heads together, and save Jimmy. His life matters, just like your children. Your children's life matters. Stop discriminating. Close your eyes and picture Jimmy as your son or daughter. Now, what are you going to do? You're going to help him, right? So, enough said. And to those that are following me and want to know the solution is you. Yes, you heard me correctly. The solution was always you. It's us. Like I said before, there are more of us than there are them. These are leaders that gave an oath to protect us. We have founding fathers that said, hey, look, we know the leaders can be corrupt. That's why we left London, right? And so what they did was they did a quo warranto. They put a quo warranto in place so we the people, when these corrupt civilians go rogue, we knock them off or out of office. They have an oath to follow their oath. They have no other option. But what they've done is they abuse their power and they try to convince us to give up our rights. Okay, I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to tell you this because it's so important, guys. The minute someone in office commits treason, for example, the second that judge gives you a void order, talks out the side of the neck, or violates your constitutional rights, you must stand up and say, I recuse you. Because the way that these psychopaths think is, if you don't know your right, I'll take it away. Higher Supreme Court says there's only one law, and that's God's law. That's God's natural law, and it can be changed. Man-made rules and regulations can be changed. And if you don't believe me, look at the ADA law. It's a federal law. And look up Title II, Title III, and look up and remember Tennessee versus Lane. Okay, and you also have the Supreme Court justices saying, look, these people will take what we said, the law of the land, take it, bend it, twist it, and try to convince you to give up your rights. It's a game. It's a rich man's game. It's a business. Our legal system is rigged. They have rigged it so badly that they bought stock in electronic filing. So we are always at the disadvantage. You got to wake up, guys. We've been tricked by our judicial system. Oh, if you know something's wrong, you got to stand up for your rights. Otherwise, we'll be right back where we started from, right now. And right now, you know, when you see someone in a leadership position, in a high leadership position, they have a responsibility to be held accountable for whatever they do and not do. And so we have a responsibility as civilians with the power. We have always had the power. We always had the power. We just didn't have the confidence to stand on our own two feet to say, hey, look, you're wrong. And then if they're wrong, we know we can go to the military. The military said, we will defend that Constitution and we will not obey. We have the responsibility not to obey the corrupt orders of these civilians, starting with Congress, starting with judges. These judges and congressmen, these other leaders in high-ranking position, they are abusing their power. When they abuse their power, God said what? I'm going to take it away. So, I take no commands from anyone except God, and I know I'm right. And when you're right, when you're standing on right, You just stand until whatever's in the dark comes to light, because it will come to light. And I always think of this thing that I'm going through like a marathon. I've run 54 marathons for the military. And it doesn't matter how fast or slowly you run that thing, that 26.2 miles, it's going to hurt. But after it hurts, after the pain is gone, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, guys. So don't worry about me. Worry about you. So until next time, this is Sue, out.